Hello everyone and welcome to today's event, Upskilling Hospitality for More Sustainability and Resilience in the Food Supply Chain. My name is Dave Keating. I'm a journalist based in Brussels coming at you live from the Euractiv studios in the heart of Brussels EU Quarter. So today we're going to be talking about a sector which doesn't always get the appreciation that it sometimes deserves. The hospitality sector might be something we take for granted, but it's one of the key drivers of the EU economy. And that's something we became acutely aware of when it had to be closed during the COVID pandemic. HoReCa businesses, that is, hotels, restaurants, and cafes, provide 11 million jobs in the EU and contribute between 2 to 3% of total EU GDP. But looking at the years ahead, the sector is facing significant challenges. The pandemic and the resulting lockdowns have left economic repercussions that are still felt up to this day. But financial recovery from the pandemic isn't the only challenge that the hospitality sector is facing. Inflation and high energy costs are also heavy burdens, especially for the owners of independent businesses. Labor shortages continue to be a pressing issue, and although these existed before, they were exacerbated by the pandemic, with 10 to 20% of the workforce having switched to other sectors. At the same time, sustainability demands are increasing, be it due to the digital and green transitions or new customer demands on animal welfare as well as regional sourcing. So today we'll discuss what skills are necessary to make the hospitality sector fit for the future, more resilient, and more sustainable at the same time. To get us started, we're going to begin with a keynote speech from German center-right MEP Marlene Mortler. Marlene Mortler, I give the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all, and I am pleased to be here today as a keynote speaker at this event by Metro and Euractiv. With regard to Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy, I strongly believe in our primary producers doing the one thing they know best, producing high-quality raw materials for our food. This is what we Europeans are known for: food security, diversified agriculture that also focuses on social and societal concerns such as animal welfare, you mentioned environment and climate change. Promoting sustainable development and efficient management of natural resources such as water, soil, and air. Therefore, it is important for me to know exactly what the consequences of the Green Deal and Farm to Fork objectives are for future food security in Europe. We must avoid a crisis in access to food, also becoming a crisis in food availability. Rising food prices, you mentioned, for consumers and rising input prices for farmers are already having a devastating impact on global food security. The brutal war against Ukraine has made the vulnerability of the EU's food systems even clearer. One thing has become clear: self-sufficiency in food cannot be taken for granted. In 2021, around 193 million people in 53 countries, our territories worldwide, were affected by acute food insecurity. Where people go hungry, conflicts are inevitable. European agriculture plays a crucial role in combating this potential crisis. COVID has set us back 10 years, including in the hospitality sector. That there is a great need for action with regard to digitalisation has been shown before all by the corona pandemic. Regardless of whether it is a booking platform, an online delivery service, or a private accommodation agency, the fact is that competition between analog companies and digital service providers is not always fair or in balance. To position the hospitality industry successfully and efficiently for the future, you urgently need improved and faster digital processes and structures. A second topic that is particularly close to my heart is reducing unnecessary food waste together. Unfortunately, with Farm to Fork, the Commission hardly provides us with any instruments to consistently tackle this issue in Europe. But the avoidance of unnecessary food waste is part of every restaurateur's toolkit. Responsible food handling is already a fixed and important part of gastronomic training and the comprehensive further training offered in the gastronomic professions. Purchasing and the use of goods must be calculated in such a way that food waste is avoided with a right portion size and a professional purchasing policy. I support this very much and bring it to life in my private household as well, not least as a trained master of rural home economics. I'm always aware that food production has a significant ecological footprint. Its production requires land and consumes water. Unfortunately, in my home country of Germany alone, around 6.7 million tons of food waste are produced in private households every year. In addition, 1/3 of all food produced for consumption outside the home ends up in waste. Sustainability, hardly any other term, is so much the subject of public discussion and is interpreted and practiced in so many different ways. One thing is clear, and this brings me to my conclusion. The hospitality and tourism industry, especially in rural areas, and thus its main service providers, the hotels and restaurants, are dependent on sustainable management and an intact environment. The preservation of ecological diversity, the responsible use of existing resources, and the thought of the next generations are at the top of the agenda for your industry. Food and foodstuffs are highly personal and emotional. Consumers want enjoyment and not prohibitions. Inspiration instead of confrontation. I hear from Germany that large caterers, for example, have to do without our regional agricultural suppliers because of the Supply Chain Act. They simply cannot meet the requirements and are overburdened with excessive bureaucracy. This shows good ideas do not always bring good results in the end. As a tourism politician in Berlin, I was member of the German Bundestag. I have closely accompanied and supported your industry for years. You work hard in this labor-intensive service industries. A big thank to all of you today from me. Stay motivated and committed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MEP Mortler. I think it's a very good point you make there, that food is a very personal and emotional experience, and people don't want to feel, the scolded about food or ordered to do something with food. They want to feel opportunities with food. So with that in mind, also thinking about the hospitality sector and upskilling, we've talked a bit so far about the effects of the COVID pandemic on the hospitality sector. How do you think upskilling can help get the hospitality sector through those lingering effects? And how can it be seen, like you say, as an opportunity, as a fun thing, an optimistic thing?
Okay, I think professional experience is particularly important in the hotel and catering industry. Many of the skills and personal qualities that are important for our industry can only be acquired, and this can only be acquired in practice. I just want to encourage all hospitality professionals to actively build their professional way in different exciting positions at home and abroad, and to actively practice European, yes, how may I say, European lifelong learning. This is particularly true in an innovative industry, such as the hospitality industry, which constantly has to remain interesting for the guest, reinterpret traditions, and develop new trends.
Yeah, it's a good point that hospitality needs to maintain its being interesting to the guests, but also to the workers in the sector. Well, MEP Mortler, thank you so much for getting us started with this conversation today. We're going to take a short break now, just to get our stage set up. So if you're watching online, hang tight for just a second. If you're here in the room, stay seated, and we'll be right back with our panel discussion. Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We know what it takes on those cold mornings before dawn. As the neighborhood wakes, the plans are laid, the orders made, and our journey begins. Together, we focus on detail, freshness, value, convenience, service, the preparation, the passion, the care. It's the dedication to your customers and our shared love for quality products, food, culture, and local community that ensures your business and our family continues growing, thriving, and we can celebrate our future together. We are proud to serve you.
Hello, welcome back. So now we're going to get started with the panel, where we'll continue discussing some of these upskilling issues with the hospitality sector. We're very fortunate to be joined by a distinguished group of panelists here with me on the stage. Let me introduce them to you now. We have Wolfgang Trunk, who is team leader at DG Environment at the European Commission. We have Volker Glaser, who is the CEO of Hospitality Digital. That's a provider of digital solutions to restaurant owners. We have Marie Audrin, who's Director General of HoReCa. That's the Industry Association of Hotels, Restaurants, Pubs, and Cafes. And we have Quentin Guinan. He's a caterer and a chef and founder of Quand on a faim, which is basically Quand we're hungry. He's going to tell us more about that project in a bit. So you guys will be able to ask your questions to the panelists, whether you're watching online or you're here in the room using Slido. You can scan the QR code that you can find around the room and there on the screen. You can actually use your phone to scan it on the screen there if you want, if you're in the room. Put in your questions on Slido. I'll get them here on the tablet and I'll put them to the panelists in a little bit. Marie, I'd like to start with a question to you, because we've heard so far, and particularly from MEP Mortler, about some of the difficulties the hospitality sector is facing. So this is something that you're dealing with and looking at day in and day out. Could you tell us, kind of set the scene of what exactly these difficulties are that the hospitality sector is facing, particularly in terms of labor shortage. We know that's a major issue.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. And really, thank you very much for putting such a focus on the skills and labor. I mean, in our sector, it's very revealing, because at the end of the day, we are a service sector. We're a people sector. So we work to welcome our guests and offer a lot of quality experience, enjoyment, and we also have a lot of people working in the industry. So it's really around people, and certainly, and a lot was said before. Indeed, we have this issue of skills and labor shortage after COVID. Of course, we're not the only sector, but I think it's particularly acute in the hospitality and tourism sector. You mentioned 10 to 20% of the workforce that is missing. So it has a real impact on the day-to-day operation of business, and that's really an issue we felt across Europe. So it's really important that we continue to focus on the skills. I mean, I have to say there is such a diversity of skills in the hospitality sector, and that's the great thing. We need a different range. We need interpersonal skills, language skills. Now we'll come to that later, much more and more related to sustainability, because of course you need to manage waste, manage the food, manage the water, and also digital, because it's interesting and it's important to develop all this innovation, but you know also people that need to work with those tools. So that's really very important, and I think we mentioned lifelong learning, apprenticeship, and really for us also to retain the workforce, to be attractive. So there's been a lot of initiatives at European level to promote the image of the sector, show how it can be fulfilling as a career. And you know what I find great, it's that you can do as a young person work in different bars and cafes and restaurants, but you can also choose to make your career and your life and your business within the sector. And all of that is important, I think, and give people a lot of skills that they can use for life. So really, I think it's really still the massive issue for the sector, and we will probably continue to face some challenge, for example, this summer, and all along the year, but to help really business to recover fully from COVID and get the right skills and the right staff.
Well, Quentin, you're someone who's chosen to make your life and your work in the sector. So you're dealing with a lot of these issues on the ground. And I know that a particular concern for you is food waste, which we already heard about from MEP Mortler. How can people on the ground working in the hospitality sector deal with food waste, and how can upskilling help deal with food waste, and are customers also ready for the changes that might be required?
So exactly, there are like two things. So I'm a caterer, so I do mostly events. And chef at home. So for the chef at home, hopefully there will not be food waste, because people are quite hungry and they respect it. But like for events, it's harder, because my customers would order for like 300 people and then show up at 200. Then they've got 100 people of food waste that we prepared, which is not nice for my staff and not nice for the planet. So how can we upskill people? The thing is, after that, most of caterers would just throw that in the bin. I do not do that because it's work. We did that with our heart, so we don't want to waste food after that. And so the thing is, we take time to repackage the food and donate it to people in need. But it takes time and money, because, for example, they don't take all the food. They mostly don't take meat. They take vegetarian food. They also do not want too much or too less, so it takes a bit of time. And in my team, I've got one person that I trained to, when we come back from an event, I trained her to package the food and to know where to ship it and where to give it to people. And it took time, because at the beginning, I would just go to some place and ask them if they wanted food, and they said, yes, but not that one, and maybe not today, but tomorrow. And so it's really not easy. And also in the kitchen, when you get a chef that's not trained properly, he might cook for 200 people if I ask him to cook for 50. You know what I mean? Because it's quite hard to know how many people are going to eat. And so that's my everyday job, to train my team and to check that they're not going to do too much or too less. Because that could be a big problem as well. And after COVID, that's the worst, because as we said earlier, 1 person on 5 quit the hospitality to go somewhere else. And so the 4 left, they're not specifically well trained. And so they are good chefs, but maybe not that good sometimes. And so we have to be behind and check that the food is going to be well prepared, the quantity is going to be right. And so that's really not easy, really not.
So you mentioned that part of those efforts to combat food waste does involve packaging, inevitably. So Wolfgang, I wanted to ask you about, we've got the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive from the Commission, which has many environmental goals and is trying to deal with some of these sustainability issues. And avoiding food waste is one of the goals of the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, to make sure that, you know, if you package things better, they can last longer. How would you say, as a whole, the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive has affected the hospitality sector? How will it affect the hospitality sector in its new iteration? And what are the most important goals that need to be met?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to come here and to talk again about the proposal. First of all, it's a regulation. We propose a regulation.
Right, regulation now. I keep doing this.
That is already a big important point, because we learned that the current directive failed in both objectives. In the objective of environmental performance, to bring up to make the packaging sector sustainable, reduce packaging waste, but also in terms of economic objectives. We have mushrooming national systems under this current directive, which are a big problem for all economic stakeholders. We have really big costs of these national systems for the industries and also for the service providers. Now, indeed, food waste and food safety are our baseline for everything. I worked the majority of my professional life. I worked in DG Santé, and so you can imagine the whole proposal was based on this. Was not even a matter of priority. This is a baseline. So food safety is a key pillar. Secondly, food waste generation. We have several measures who address both issues, food safety and food waste, and we were in very close consultation with DG Santé, who is really has the lead on food waste reduction, but all measures we made, and I can dig out some of the more concrete ones, where hospitality, HoReCa is affected. I start with the one which is not food, and these are these miniature shampoo bottles that are in the hotelry. It's not that we want to ban. We consider them unnecessary, and it creates a lot of packaging waste, which is phased out. There is not so much let's say opposition against this point. It's point 5 of our famous Annex 5. So there, I think we have some consensus. There is much more about concern about point 3 and 4. 3 is the single-use ban in restaurants. And 4 is the ban of these small miniature packages of confiture or Nutella in a 12-gram tray of plastic with an aluminium lid. So these we have considered these unnecessary. Of course, if you go today still in some hotels, you have it for free on the buffet, on the breakfast buffet. But coming now to the food waste, we are criticized. We are increasing food waste. But here, if you go, the people going there and grabbing one of these 12-gram Nutella, they might take out two-thirds, but one-third is directly stays in and is food waste. So we have a lot of concrete points where where the proposal really decreases food waste also, and also, let's say, in transport packaging you have food waste reduced with reusable packaging. Coming now to the maybe most tricky point for also the HoReCa sector is the ban of the single-use packaging in restaurants. This is also something where we, first of all, the MEP said we have many small restaurants in the local areas. We foresee here that the member states can exempt SME as micro enterprises from this ban. So if a member state says a small island in Greece, there is no reuse system for in the restaurants, and we must still continue allow these restaurants to continue with single-use packaging. This is foreseen in the proposal already, but in the end, and this is our main objective in the end, we also count on a mindset shift, and we count on that there are new business models evolving in this in this area, so that these changes to a more sustainable packaging or food packaging will materialize. We give an extra time for. We are aware there are logistics, there are investments necessary, so we give 6 years more to 2030 to cope with these new rules for point 3 of Annex 5. So we think we gave the clear signal where to go. It's undoubted that it is a big reduction in packaging waste with this ban. We think it's also, let's say, feasible, and let's say, coming to my most positive point, also with upskilling, to coming to the upskilling point, we see very many nice startups or in these services like yours. Maybe you might not be a startup anymore, but there are young, fresh ideas to cope with these new challenges also in this area with reusable packaging, but also still I believe there is also the need for education, for training of the consumer, of the citizens, but also of the staff, professional staff dealing with these, to cope, to really to reduce packaging waste, to really avoid that food safety is undermined, or to really ensure that there is not more food waste.
So speaking of those new ideas to cope with these challenges, Volker, we know that digital tools are one avenue there, and we also know that the labor changes weren't the only change to the hospitality sector during COVID. We saw a lot of new digital innovations. Yeah. We had an increase in home delivery. We had QR codes at tables where you could order your food at the table, and many establishments have chosen to keep that. That in turn has led to some anxiety in terms of the labor implications of all that. What role would you say digitalization is going to play in upskilling the hospitality sector in a way that will benefit workers?
Yeah, thank you. So I think digitization can help in many ways in the industry, on many levels. So we heard actually food waste, for example. There are fantastic tools in the marketplace where a restaurant owner can actually pick the right ingredients, can, based on data, measure the volumes that are needed to actually deliver the menu card. This is helping the restaurant owner to run the restaurant more efficiently, right? So really, based on data, understand what the patterns in the restaurant are. And we have cases where restaurant owners, once they use digital tools to plan actually their menu card, the ingredients that they need, they can actually save food and ramp actually waste down by 30 to 50% or even beyond. So I think just picking the term here, food waste in the industry, this is important. And if then a restaurant owner uses tools like those, I mean, this in the end brings innovation to the workplace, where today we have labor shortage. I think that's clear, but digital tools can make the workplace more interesting, more innovative, can attract young people specifically, more, if you will, aggressively, because that's what you have to do today as a restaurant owner if you're looking for people to work for the industry. We heard it from you, right? So 1 in 5 people simply gone. So you need to do something to make this workplace in the restaurant interesting to young people. The other thing is that if you think about, operational efficiency in the restaurant, there are really nice digital tools today, be it, starting from table booking, pickup and delivery. Sometimes it still is the simple website for a restaurant to get visibility on the web and spread the information on the restaurant so that users, specifically young users, will find the restaurant on the web. So again, this brings innovation to the workplace, enables the owners and the staff to acquaint themselves with digital tools, which is upskilling in itself in this industry, which needs it a lot. And actually we've seen it. You mentioned Corona in the beginning. Corona was kind of a booster for digitization of this industry, which back then, so before 2020, was partly digital, of course. There was always a niche where you would say, here's digitization already, but which was kind of really under-digitized, right? So we've seen a digital push, and I think it's incredibly important that we bring the digital tools to this industry to, in the end, make restaurants, to make the HoReCa industry, where possible, more sustainable, but also more resilient. I mean, that's an important point these days, right? So will you survive in times where energy costs really go through the roof, right? So are there ways to manage your costs better, to run in the end your restaurant more like a successful company? And here I think over time digital tools really help upskill the industry, because people in this industry can acquaint themselves with future tools. There's one interesting initiative and website actually which we do support. It's My Sustainable Restaurant from metro.com, where we really inform on all the ways and all the tools and all the practices that you can use and automate to run a restaurant more efficiently. So I think it really helps upskilling the industry.
Marie, I know you must be hearing from your members right now about this kind of double whammy they're experiencing with inflation and high energy costs on one end and the labor shortage on the other end. How can businesses attract new workforce? What kind of skills are necessary to attract that new workforce in the context of a situation where a lot of independent businesses probably don't have a lot of extra money to be spending right now to just pay people to lure them in?
Yeah, no, and look, sometimes it's incredibly difficult right now for the sector, because indeed we had COVID, and you mentioned, and probably it shed some light on the sector that was taken for granted, and then we had to face really the inflation, the war. I mean, really, costs are out of control for many of the businesses. It's already a sector where you have very tight margins. And now, I mean, suddenly people were seeing multiply by 5 or 10 their energy bills. Price of food have gone up by 30% of more. So in really in certain places, it's out of control for the business. And as you rightly point out, they had to survive through COVID. So a lot of them had to take loans to bank, and they also have to reimburse those loans right now. So it's really a major major impact. We are also facing consumer, I mean, people who are also seeing they are challenging with the inflation and they're challenging challenges for them as consumer to choose and their priorities and are struggling. So I think it requires a lot of rethinking of the practices for, of course, for business, and really they also have to engage with their guests, with their customers. But yes, they have to look at their cost in terms of managing the waste, and I wanted to bring a few comments on that, you know, how they can save energy, cooking differently as well. And this is what I like. It's a very innovative sector in that. So we are, yes, facing a lot of challenges, but what I want to say is that there are great ideas, great innovation, but it reflects really the willingness of young people, entrepreneurs who want to invest, who want to do things differently. But we also have millions of other companies who are struggling, and we really need to take care of them and help them to survive and go through. Now, in terms of attracting people, look, we also aware that we have to promote the image of the sector, what we can offer. So also the purpose in terms of, like all businesses, you know, what are the values we are driving, the purpose of working there, maybe new tools like the digital. There's been a lot of discussion around Europe about, of course, the working condition. I mean, we are fully aware of that, and it's a challenging balancing act because you need to survive, you need to keep your business open and growing and investing if you want to be able to continue to provide jobs. So, you know, it's in many countries these are tough discussions, and here it's the year of skills in Europe, and it's very important that we have these years of skills. For example, we think, for example, working on the legal migration package and really put a focus on the different talent pool and really attracting the workers is important. So we hope there will be progress on that conversation in Europe on that legal migration package, because we are really fully behind this proposal. That's very important. It's also really promoting apprenticeship, lifelong learning as a route into hospitality, and again training and developing as a business with your staff on digital, on sustainability. But really you have also to work with schools and training providers, so they really know what the business needs and what we are seeking. So it's a complex issue in the sense that there are many different ways, but there's a lot of activity nationally on really trying to promote the image of the sector. And I think, you know, just to react on the packaging and packaging waste proposal, and because it's a regulation, so we really are concerned with some of the really proposal in terms of we have such a diverse model of business. Yes, you have really ideas and a model like Quentin, if I may, but it's really one way of doing business, maybe with some proximity, some local. It doesn't necessarily, of course, reflect the whole industry. And yes, you can change some of the practices, but we need to train people. We need to people have the skill in a restaurant, in an hotel, to manage, to refill the. It's not something that can happen overnight. So, you know, we need also a bit of flexibility and pragmatic approach when we look at this regulation, and it takes a lot of time, especially for small companies, to have the solution to offer that, to have also the space and the in their establishment to manage all these weights. But certainly there are lots of activities locally to work on that and to develop solution, which does not necessarily require extra burdensome regulation.
Well, we'll come back to the packaging issue, but first, Volker, you wanted to comment on this.
Yeah, just quickly, I just wanted to comment on your point on education. So really educating people in a restaurant, this is a complex thing. I mean, if you see it from the viewpoint of the restaurant owner, I mean, you need to run your business. In our case, it's small businesses, micro businesses, if you will. We are bringing them digital tools, yes, but educating the people means really actually going there. That's a complex thing. That's what we do with our consultants. We consult the industry, we consult the people who are running their business, and we do see how complex this actually is. So we are talking about completely new digital processes, even if they help in the end, that education needs to be done. And if I may say, I think investing from an EU perspective into that kind of upskilling of the industry, really setting up educational programs, knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer programs to make that happen for this industry in particular, I think this will pay out in helping the industry moving, transforming better, moving faster, becoming even more creative. The educational aspect for this industry, I think, is enormously important. Just wanted to comment on that one.
Quentin, does that match with your experiences in the catering sector?
Yes. So to give a concrete, small example, I'm going to meet what we said earlier as well. I went to a hotel about a month ago, and the breakfast buffet was, as you said, so basically small, little 12-gram jams and stuff. And I thought about that, and I saw in the kitchen there was no chef, nothing, just kind of students, because I could see they were not trained and experienced. And the thing is, for the student, you said to him, the strawberry jam, if it's open, and it's there, you just throw it in the bin. Easy, right? If you've got a big jar of strawberry jam, how can you explain to a student if the strawberry jam is still good or not good? Because they're going to see it, they need to put a foil on it and put a date on it and put it somewhere, and it's quite hard, you know. So I'm totally against single-use packaging, but I understand that it's hard for some business owners to train people correctly, because if you have got a big, like for example there you have got some sandwiches for lunch here, if you don't have a chef, how can you explain someone that's not trained for that when this sandwich has to go to the bin, or if you can serve it still again tomorrow, you know what I mean? And so that's the big thing. So we need to train people. It's true that we need help and we need solutions to help training people and to find trained people, because that's the most complicated thing right now, is to find people that know what they do.
So Wolfgang, does the Commission also think that upskilling and reskilling needs to be part of the new regulation? And how do you respond to Maria's point that you can't just expect these things to happen overnight?
Well, for us, this is let's say the last step that we have to train the people. We are currently still in the phase where we are, for instance, financing research projects. What must be the washing protocol for reusable food container? These things are currently more in the research pilot phases. We finance also startups to develop these new refill systems and these new models that we need for transition to a more sustainable packaging. In the end, and the next step, of course, I mentioned it already initially in my first statement, that we must train both the professional staff but also the consumer. If he wants to come back into the supermarket with a refillable container, or also in terms of food waste, but come a little bit more to the professional stuff here. I think this is a problem that you have, or if you go to a McDonald's, the people who are serving you there, if I'm in Germany, I'm happy if they understand German. So this is really to train these people, first of all, to ensure food safety, secondly, to avoid food waste, and in the end, the high end would be that they are capable to properly dispose the packaging.
Marie, on this point about the consumers, it's true that as consumers we've become accustomed over many, many years to these small little packets of jelly or to the individual portions. How do we actually change consumer thinking? For instance, a consumer might think that a big jar of jelly rather than individual packets is unsanitary. They're sharing the jelly with whoever was at the table before them. How do we change the consumer mindset here?
Well, it's a good question, because while we were talking about food waste, I mean, I think it was the Eurostat study, 53% of food waste comes from households in Europe. So that's really something, because we are now looking at the Commission will issue its food waste target, and if you look at the target, food service, retail and households will be all together in the same target, where, I mean, I think these are completely different issue, but the consumer, of course, it's very important, and we need to engage. I know and I'm sure, Quentin, you do that in restaurants. Of course, the owner, the personnel has to be trained to explain to the consumer maybe why they decide, for example, in terms of the reduction of the portion. And but indeed, there are very different things in terms of waste, because you can be a restaurant owner, but also it's catering, it's a buffet in hotel. And let's not forget, we're just out of COVID. And COVID means also a lot of concern from the consumer in terms of the health and safety. And that's also one of the, and I really hope it's not going to come back, but you know, it's really something that is important still today for consumer and for guests. So I think, and I don't have the answer, but indeed it's not just for business. We want to play a part, and it's really a commitment from the industry. It's related to cost as well, but we need to also educate consumer, and certainly in the sector, talk to your customers, explain also your approach. But it's not always easy in a big buffet, in a large hotel, and where people expect certain things. So, and yet the health and safety and the sanitary reasons are still really important for some, and I agree with you in terms of how then do you train, or for example on the reuse, I mean, where is the liability? I mean, if you bring back your container, and again, I mean, really, by all means, that people try in a very high touristic place this summer to see if anybody is bringing back its container to this place. But in terms of the liability for the sector, I mean, we need reassurance on that, because also then you need to have in place the system to clean, but the consumer needs to be aware of that when so this has really to be thought through. And we want to move forward, but I think there are still some big questions on this.
Quentin?
Yeah, I think the main thing about that is it has to be also for the customer and for the business. It has to be easier to give something that's reusable than to throw something in the bin. The example of some fast food company that would make burgers and would serve that on a real plate. I was amazed because I had real plate and real cutlery, but the thing is the sauce came in a little plastic pot. Why don't you put the sauce on the plate or something else, right? And the thing is, it's because then they really needed a dishwasher and somebody to clean this little thing, because the plate is quite easy, but all the little things, it goes everywhere. Because I asked him, and he said it's faster and easier for us just to prep all the sauce in this little plastic tin, and then they can keep it for 3 days in the fridge and just open it, right? And so, like for me, I've got a takeaway counter as well, and you can buy food. And I did, when I opened it a year and a half ago, I did half of my packaging that was single-use packaging, and half of the plates in the fridge were in real plates that you could take home, pay €5 for it, and then give it back to me. And believe it or not, the 2 first weeks, the only dishes that were left in the fridge were the single-use packaging one. Because we are in an area where people are really, the customers are really like that, you know. And because it was easier, because the pre-packaged food, you would take it, open it, transfer it into a plate, put it in the oven, it's a lot of work. But the thing I give with €5, you take the plate, remove the plastic foil on top, only waste, and then you put it in the oven for 15 minutes, and it's cooked. You can put it on a plate and eat it straight from that plate, and then give it back to me. That's easy, and so customers are happy to pay €5 and then get it back after and not produce any waste. But I understand it's not ideal and it's not like this everywhere, but the thing is, it has to be easy, And we need to educate, because we did lots of signs, we put on Instagram, on our mailing list, we said people, why do you do that? And then people were like, oh, that's easy, and they do it, and they buy it from me. So it works sometimes.
Volker, I suppose some digital trends might be increasing food waste. Like if we think about home delivery, there's going to be more likelihood that somebody gets a individual sachet that they don't use, right? Whereas at a restaurant, that would be sitting on the table. Are there also ways that new digital innovations can help reduce food waste and in particular change customers' behavior around food waste?
Yeah, so I mean there are tools to help the industry prevent food waste from happening or reducing, right? So that is clear and that is happening, and we see more and more restaurants using those tools. Now if we talk about the end customer or the guests in the restaurants or the people who order from pickup and delivery services, that's a very complicated thing. And actually I wanted to add to what you said. I think here you will see the need for a mega transformation in this industry, which is happening as we speak. I mean, end customers, we all end customers, will do what is easy, what is cheap. Creativity will come from packaging differently, rewarding specific use cases. That is something I think that is happening as we speak. We are learning how to do that, but that will be a long way to go. Because if you think about the way, I mean, it's easy to call a pickup and delivery service or a delivery service. It will be there. Look, what actually exerts pressure on you as an end customer to not do that, or to think about different use cases, or to ask for different packaging there, you can't do, because the services that do that, the delivery services, are extremely thin margin businesses, and most of those services are not profitable at all, and there are questions if they will ever be. So hence they will turn to ways to reduce costs in the delivery component. Hence, yes, it will be about creativity in thinking about the use cases, and funding, I think, should really go there. Thinking about use cases, thinking about packaging, thinking about different processes. We do not have them today. Thinking about rewards for using a specific packaging and so on. That is something that I think the entire industry, we all together need to establish that. It's not here, it should be funded. And startups in this segment of the industry should be funded massively, because that's where the issue actually lies. Yeah,
Wolfgang?
Yeah, on this point, where can we let's say should we act, and therefore we act on the in this case specific case on the restaurants and not on the delivery service, because it's the restaurant who decides whether it will be a reusable pizza box or a single-use paper cardboard box. So the responsibility is clear, and we really encourage these new business models, and we see also, of course, we call it economic instruments, but also, as you mentioned, you were in that in your, Germany has already introduced this system that you can go to a restaurant and you can require, I want to have my food on a reusable packaging. But it depends already, all the different actors. Burger King has a different approach to it than McDonald's, and we are learning from this experience. How has it been? You chose the €5. This is probably smart. In other areas you have, or you realize that the people, they pay the €2 or €5, but they don't bring it back because they like to have it at home. All these things have to be taken into account, or another with these economic instruments. They are very important. We just pave the way, we create the opportunity, but how they are then applied in real life, this we leave to, let's say, we call it subsidiarity. So we establish the instruments also in terms of transparency. If you go in Germany to McDonald's and you say today, I want it in a reuse, then he says, okay, you have to pay €2 for the reusable container cup, and then, but he has to pay the same price then if he pays if he has it in single use. That means even the one who pays for the who opts for the multi-use option, he pays the price for the single-use cup because this is priced in. So you pay, let's say, for a Coke, I don't know, €2, whatever. And if you want to have it in reusable, you pay €4 because €2 deposit. The €2 you get back. But from the €2, you already have the price of, let's say, 20 cents is for the cup, for the single-use cup. So even the multi-use client pays the single-use packaging even if he doesn't use it. So all these things.
So the funny thing is, I thought about that, and if you take the single-use at my place, you pay €1 fine. Because I thought about that and I was like, that's not fair, you know. And so if you want to take single use, once you can pay €1, that will never get it back. And then after that, people think and understand it's not really, because it takes time to put it in the single use one, and it's not good for the environment, and it takes time for me to buy this single use stuff. But that's also true that when I get so I would say that 70% of my €5 plates come back, and 30% I never say them back.
So it's a good business for you.
Yes, exactly.
It's an interesting model. Okay, let's take some questions from the audience, from Slido. First question is for you, Quentin. This question, sorry, I just lost it here. Question is from Marine Tizon from HoReCa. And it's about kind of who's paying for the efforts to deal with food waste. Question is, are you carrying the costs of disposal and transport to donate the surplus of food to donation places?
That's a really good question. Thank you, Marine. So yeah, it's true. So that's why I said earlier that big caterers in Belgium, and I'm not going to give any names, they just put everything in the bin because it's way cheaper. If I have food waste, just putting it in a bin, it's quite cheap because you don't pay the bin much, right? For me, it's about, if I've got a 300 people event, it's about 2 hours work after that to put that in packaging, to give it to donate it. And because I don't want to put it in single-use packaging, I use reusable packaging like big dishes. I give it there, then they eat it, and then the day after I need to come back and get my dirty dish back and then wash it. So it's between 2 and 3 hours work, and of course, yes, I pay for that. But if I was a good business owner and a good financial, if I Excel sheet worker, I could include that in my cost. But in real life, I pay for that.
Maybe to comment on that again, I mean, that's what I meant before, right? So if we fund things on a European level, let's think about that. We are talking about a monster transformation that needs to happen. So funding initiatives like this, I don't know how, I don't have the recipe here, but I think that's an interesting way to look at it if we want to together give a push to this transformation, because it's huge, Okay,
so I have 2 questions on the labor force that I'll put to Marie. First one is from Massimiliano Gobato. Regarding the workforce, would you see an opportunity between migration and the sector's labor shortages? Do we need to think about changing migration rules, migration laws to attract the workforce? Then Giuseppe Luongo asks, regarding the labor shortage, do you link this issue to the notably poor labor conditions in the sector in terms of salary, workload, and timetable?
Yeah, so on the first question, as mentioned, yes, I think, I mean, the movement of workers, the migration is important to the sector. We need people with different skills to work in the sector. So certainly in HoReCa, we've, as I say, we think the legal migration package from the Commission facilitating for entrepreneur. It's really important. I mean, there was this looking at, for example, the talent pool. Of course, we need all kinds of skills, so not just high-skilled people. We need all kinds of skills, and having partnership and talking with third countries. Yes, it is important, and we need to have clear rules, open rules on that aspect, and it can certainly help the sector. On the second question, yes, I mean, we know, and there's been a lot of discussions in country, and more or less on average, maybe wages have increased by 16%. I mean, there's been a lot of, it's often through social dialogue in country. I mean, but that's not the only thing. So yes, there is a consideration of looking at the wage, maybe the working condition, but there is something else that we need to know to promote the image of the sector. And look, we are in the sector. People want to have food and enjoy drink at 7 days a week, almost. I mean, so we have also this constraint that this is our business and this is what people are expecting from us. But I think there's been, after COVID, a lot of negotiations at national level and really programs to improve. But I think we need also, as I say, to promote at school also the image of the sector, show that you can have a fulfilling career and really train people all life. Yes, it's part of the conversation, wage of working condition, of course, but there are much more than that because, as I said, there's been increase in overall in wages in many countries, but we are still, need to find the right skills and the right people.
Wolfgang?
Yes, on this, my personal perception is that with our reuse targets or single-use bans, we are really increasing also the image of the alternatives. I see a lot of young, fresh people who go into this sector, and so if I can put it, the traditional people in restaurants who work with single-use packaging, this is really. Or to put it positive, the reuse systems they are more attractive in my personal perception for all this, because it implies also new services, and so I have the feeling that with these measures that we come up with now in the packaging proposal, the jobs in the HoReCa, at least in the reuse sector, you can have more automation. So these works that are currently done by not well-paid workers in sorting single-use or giving out single-use, the alternative jobs are a little bit more sophisticated. You can automate, have a lot of automation. You have pooling systems for these washing services, all these things. I see there is some fresh businesses rolling out with more attractive working conditions and hopefully also payment.
Okay, we have another question to Quentin here. Question is from Mateo Gonzalez. When you consider the sustainability of the menus you serve, how do you calculate the carbon footprint of what you serve? Do your customers tend to demand local and seasonal, or do they get exotic products even if they are shipped from across the Atlantic?
All right. So I do not calculate because I mostly buy from local producers, and I try to educate my customers. So I've got lots of different customers, but most of them are also embassies, and that's the hardest part because they want to feature their products, and so basically, if I work for an embassy that's all over really far from here, they want me to put in the plates meats that comes from there, So that's not ideal. So I try to educate them and show them that it's possible to eat as well when you buy food locally. And so I don't calculate the carbon footprint, but I tend to buy food from places I know. For example, for the meat, I would go in Beersel. It's about 15 km from here, on a small farmer that produce a lot of meat. And no, it's not organic, but it's homegrown. It's a small family. It's homemade, and it's really good. And then it's better than meat that comes from, I don't know, Ireland or Australia or New Zealand or something like that, because there's New Zealand lamb a lot in Brussels. It's good, but the thing is, it comes from New Zealand. We've got really good lamb in Brussels as well. And so why choosing that one? Because sometimes it's faster, it's easier, and you find it a lot in supermarkets. And I do not always agree with that.
Volker, are there digital tools that can help?
Yeah. So I just wanted to comment. I mean, that you could though use digital tools to trace, for example, to really get down to this carbon footprint of what you serve. This is available, right? So there's the ProTrace initiative we are promoting at Metro, for example. There are digital tools that we do offer. One is called Menu Kit, for example, where you can really take note of that. So the ingredients that you buy, where does it come from, what's in there. So all this information is available if you want to do it. Not you're doing a bad job. Of course not, you're doing a great job. But if you want to, and if we see all of us, if we see ourselves as part of this transformation that needs to take place, then it makes sense to think about processes like those, right? So, and tools like those that help you go to the information level that you need to promote and push sustainability in the end.
If I could just add something. So, for example, in Brussels, they did a sustainability fish guide. So basically, there is like a little book that I use every single day that helps me finding the fish that's green and eco-friendly. So, for example, Sebaste, which is a fish that's really bad. I didn't know that because I don't have all the knowledge in the world, and all of those kinds of tools that can help me to find that. Right now, it's the sins of asparagus. If I'm a good chef, I know that, but not everybody knows that. And so it's nice to have tools like a book or a website or something that can be, all right, we are in June, I can buy asparagus. We are in September, I cannot buy asparagus, you know? So that's good, because then chefs can do their menus and they'll say like, okay, asparagus are really good, but maybe not right now. Maybe in June it's better, you know? And so that helps a lot.
Yep.
On the digitalization, I was 3 weeks ago on the Interpark, the world biggest packaging fair, and I was just talking about digitalization on one conference. So we have also upcoming technologies like the digital watermarking that will help us for packaging. It's very cheap. It's incredibly cheap. I was surprised. So and this you can use to not only to improve the sorting, the whole waste management, but also, as you mentioned, traceability for shelf life. All these things reduce food waste, and we can put this on the packaging, and then we have this. We pave the way for these technologies in the new regulation. But then it will be in the end the businesses who will say, okay, for this packaging, it makes sense to have a digital watermark, and for the other not. So we don't say from Brussels all new PET trays must in future have a digital watermark. So, but this is very promising new technologies to increase efficiency, to increase the waste sorting, waste management, and also to reduce food waste and increase food safety.
And maybe on that point that you made, right? So efficiency, yes, and I think as a restaurant owner today, I do realize I need to lift operational efficiency in my restaurant. I need to run it more than a successful company, as a successful company. So that is, in the end, I will tend towards using those kind of tools, using the information I need. And I think we just need to make use of. Many things are already there, so let's use them.
I mean, on that subject, Marie, I wonder, have your members looked into, because I know that there's likely two kinds of consumers here. One consumer who wants all this information, and one consumer who definitely doesn't. And a type of consumer that would sit down at a restaurant and have a menu overloaded with sustainability information, carbon counting, calorie counting, and say, ugh, I'm going somewhere else. How do you strike that balance between providing that information to the ones who want it and not overwhelming the ones who don't want it?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't think anybody would really want just overload, menu, but I think it's, again, a part of these skills that also people have to, I mean, first the owner of the restaurant and then train his staff to really explain and why they've chosen certain ingredients, on train on allergens, or train on maybe using more vegetables, for example, what they can do. But it's all, I think, more through the skills, the training, that forcing people to, get just a Bible on the menu with all this sort of information. But that's, again, because, I mean, on the local, working with local, it's true, I mean, local farmers and community, or the season. But look now, you go in the summer, anywhere in the south of Europe, who doesn't want a fresh orange juice? But you grow orange in the summer. It's a winter more, it's sometimes in some country people want to have access to everything, so it's difficult for us to then work out and explain, no, this is not the season for that fruit or for that vegetables, and that's why. But then some of the guests, they really want. So, but again, it goes through the really the skills, the communication, and speaking to our guests. But it's again something that we really have to work. But I agree, it's really working with locals, farmers and communities. Now, you need to think of the logistics, because it's not always something really easy as well, and the quantity, the affordability. But that's where the skills and the communication with the consumer is very important, rather than forcing all the information on the menu, I think.
And in that sense, it's an education process that involves a lot of people in the value chain here, ending with the consumer, but also all the way up to the restaurant workers, the people on the farms, the local produce sellers. It's a lot of education that needs to be done. So we're just about out of time. I think that was a really great conversation. I don't know about you guys, but it's made me very hungry, so I'm looking forward to the networking outside. How about a round of applause for our panelists with some great interventions? And I'd like to invite you outside now for some sandwiches and drinks. And if you've been watching online, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you an excellent rest of the afternoon. Take care.